Okay, day 27. Not going to be a whole lot today because it's rather boring. I'm sanding. And what I've done is I've primed the airplane with a DC 540, sanded it off, primed it, sanded it off. I'll be doing that for the next week. Charles had asked about painting the wings, how I do the wings. Well, it doesn't need any primer in the open bays. It needs primer only on the wood. So what we're going to be doing here is we're going to tape off the open bays and paper over it so that no primer gets into the open bays, and we'll prime the leading edge, the trailing edge, and the tips. And then sand it off and put it back on, sand it off and put it back on. Basically the same way that everybody does the silver, but I don't like silver. We've gained about an ounce so far in the primer situation where it's at right now. I weighed it before and I weighed it in this configuration, and we're up about an ounce. So once I get this all primed and I get it to look very similar to this, where you can kind of see through it, I will go ahead and detail sand it. I just went to the store, the hardware store, and I bought sandpaper, and I bought 3M Open Coat Gold paper. And what we'll do is we'll sand this all until it's just barely there, and that's about as light as you're going to get it. And then if we're just looking for the imperfections in the woodwork. And there's not a whole lot, but I tell you what, when you first put the primer on, before you sand off the first coat, like right here, I don't know whether it'll show or not, but there's some spots there that are going to take some serious massaging. That means put it on, sand it off, put it on, sand it off. Don't load this thing up with primer. When I get it all smooth, it'll end up looking like this, where you can see through it. We want to sand it all back off. Otherwise, you'll have a finish that weighs 20 ounces, because primer's heavy. But that's where we're at today. I don't want to show you me sanding because it's just sanding. Just put it on, sand it off. And when I get it closer, we'll go ahead and I'm going to show you in this video how I airbrush the entire model. Everybody says, well, how do you paint them? Well, I paint them with my snap-on airbrush, the whole thing, wing, everything. The only thing that doesn't get painted with an airbrush is if you're going to use urethane, and I take it out to the garage and put it on the paint stand and spray urethane with a regular paint gun. But we're at 31 ounces right here. It's still rather light. We'll do a quick calculation. There's 20 ounces of hardware, so that's 31.51. And we'll say on the outside 4 ounces in the wheels. So that's 55 ounces. And with a 7-ounce finish, because this is most of the finish right here, the priming, we're looking at 62 to 64 ounces. So we're right on schedule. And I'm happy with it. I knew it wasn't going to be a super featherweight, but it's a tribute airplane. So, and it'll be fun to fly. And it's real straight. Real straight. I'm so happy with how straight it is. You can't believe it. You look sight down this thing and everything's parallel, all the measurements are correct. And that's all done because I showed you how to jig it up on the glass. Perfectly straight. And I can't be happier. Well, I was going to post this up, but I'm going to show you one last thing before I do. And that's this gold coat 3M open face sandpaper. It's available at Lowe's. Relatively cheap. It's only $3 a ream instead of $7 a ream at AutoZone. But I told you about these foam blocks. It's a soft block, and what I do is I put a piece of paper over the foam block, and it's like the Zen. You sand until you can just start to see through the primer. And once you get that to where you can see through it, that's where you stop. And it's nice and flat because you're using a block. You just rub the paper on I got a mover's blanket on a workbench here to clear it. And this stuff lasts a long time. And then of course roll over the round surfaces. Don't sand them back and forth like this. Roll over them so that they stay around, and cross hatch it. One way this way, one way that way. Sanding is very hard to teach on video. But we'll do the other side here. And I want to thank you guys for sending me those letters about helping you. You know, if I can help somebody build a nicer airplane, that's what it's all about. I see so many guys struggling, and I mean guys that I know, on simple things like a paint job. I do have one issue here, and I told you about that finner issue, and it keeps coming back. I might have to dig all that out. But before I go on, I will have that one spot dug out, or whatever it's going to take to get that blemish to stop from coming back. I put CA on one of them, and then primed it and sanded it, and that seemed to work on the one. It's gone, you can't see it. But anytime it's there, it kind of worries me that when I hit it with the Randolph dope and the Randolph thinner, which is a lot hotter than 3608, that it might lift off. So I'll probably put a sealer coat on this after I get it all primed. A coat of clear, thinned about 70-30, so that we get a good bite into the primer, because I want to lock this stuff all up. I don't want an issue, because I'm not going to move on this airplane until I know that the substrate is locked to the balsa. But I only have that problem is only propped up in that one spot right here on the tail, and it wouldn't be nothing for me to sand the whole tail down to bare wood and recover it if I have to. But it's only one little spot right here. You'll see that I use some of that 3M product right here. It's a low spot. That is put on with a razor blade. It's probably half the thickness of a piece of paper after sanding it. Like I said, don't use much of it because it's heavy. However, spotting that in like that is lighter than going back over and over and over with primer. And we'll see what it looks like right now. I'll shoot a little bit of primer on it and give you an idea if it disappeared. And right now this whole project's all about massaging this thing until it's absolutely flawless, because anything you can see in primer is really going to stick out in paint. And this massaging of the primer is another way that I get the fillets absolutely perfect. You'll notice here there's no transition from one to the next. There's a little spot back here I'll fix. It'll take a few sand outs to get it fixed, but it will be perfect. And that is a good fillet right there. There's no, you can't see where it transitions at all from the wing to the fuselage. There's no line. And of course I'll sand that out again back down till it's translucent, and when I do the wings, I'll, you know, sand up to it, and it will be perfect before I shoot any paint on it. So that's how I get a good finish. 1,000 other ways to do it. A lot of people, you know, don't use primer at all. A lot of people, you know, brush finish on, whatever. But I found that this DC 540 is the fastest, lightest way to do things if you sand it off. If you don't sand it off, you're going to have a brick. So I'll go ahead and finish this up. We'll get back. It'll probably take me 2-3 days to get this all sorted out. So don't look for a video for a few days. So until we come back to shoot the final coat of primer on the sealer, tight lines.